this video, I wanted to talk about customizing dimensions using the settings in the Object Info palette. I often see setting out drawings and construction details presented without much thought put into how dimensions themselves are displayed, so I wanted to quickly run through the options available for customizing their appearance. I've drawn a very simple shape here in the drawing area and added dimensions to the outer edges using the Unconstrained Linear Dimension tool, which you can find here in the Basic toolset, and there's also a copy in the Dims and Notes toolset. I generally prefer to use the Unconstrained Dimension tool rather than the Constraints tool, which is this one here, because it allows me to create dimensions at any angle. If you select a dimension, like when selecting any other object, the object properties will be displayed in the Object Info palette. All dimensions are automatically assigned to the Dimensions class, which is one of the two default classes Vectorworks creates automatically in any new document. You can customize this class as you would any other, by right-clicking on it in the navigation palette and selecting Edit. Changing the attributes of classes, always remember to select Use at Creation to ensure the attributes are applied to all newly assigned objects. I like to use a red line for dimensions so that they stand out in construction drawings, and I also have a studio font which I'm applying using a text style. To find out more about text styles, follow the link in the notes below to one of our previous videos. Back to the Object Info palette. We recommend you leave the units set to document units, which in the UK should always be millimetres. Next, there are a number of preset standards for you to choose from. The Vectorworks default used to be ISO, which has arrowheads at each end of the dimension line, but this is now changed to ARC, which is my favourite, so I no longer make any changes to the standard. If you prefer another standard or want to create your own, I suggest you change it here on the toolbar, so every time you create a new dimension, your chosen standard will be applied automatically, and you won't need to change the settings in the Object Info palette. The offset setting can be really useful. You can make an offset when you create a new dimension by using the third mouse click. For example, click once at the start of a dimension, a second time at the end, and move the mouse cursor away from the object before clicking for a third time. However, you can edit this in the Object Info palette by typing a new measurement into the offset field. I often edit offsets in this way to make dimensions clearer or to move one out of the way of another. Next, you can set the visibility of witness lines. I rarely use these settings, but I think it's useful to know that this option is available to you. The final settings control the appearance of the text. I have already applied a text style to the Dimensions class, so my studio font and preferred colour are automatically assigned to any new dimensions I create, but I often change the text offset so the text sits closer to the dimension line. I use the Select Similar tool to select all the dimensions before typing in the new measurement and pressing Enter. As you can see, the text is now sitting closer to the lines. I regularly use the Flip Text setting to move text out of the way of other dimensions, or, as in this case, to move text off a drawing. You can also move text manually by selecting a dimension, clicking on the text itself, and whilst holding down the mouse button, dragging the text to a new position. If you now look back at the Object Info palette, you'll notice this is the same as adding a negative figure to the text offset. Using the next two settings, you can either add a box to your text or a leader line. I rarely use these, but again, I think it's useful to know that these options are available to you. You can also change the precision of the text value, although this shouldn't be necessary if you're working in millimetres, and remove the text completely, which might seem pointless but can be helpful if you want to add your own custom note in place of the text, for example, to be confirmed on site. Another way of adding custom text is using the note field. The note appears on the opposite side of the dimension line to the text. It's worth noting that I've chosen to do this demo on a simple shape in the drawing area, but these customizations can also be applied to dimensions created in the annotation layer of a viewport. I mostly add dimensions to drawings via an annotation layer, especially when I'm creating construction details, but I do sometimes add them to a design layer when creating a setting out drawing. I think both workflows are valid, but do remember not to add dimensions directly to a sheet layer. If you do this, the Dimensions tools will take the dimensions from the paper page and not from your drawing. I hope you find this helpful. If you have any questions, please do get in touch, and if you'd like to follow us for more tips, please hit the subscribe button. We really do appreciate your support.